How do you know if your relationship is healthy or unhealthy? And are there any red flags that you are on the lookout for when you start a relationship? In this video, I'm going to share with you the toxic dynamics that therapists like myself are on the lookout for when we assess relationships. If we've not met before, my name is Oliver and I'm a psychotherapist here in Los Angeles, and I specialize in working with families and couples. And I have worked with a lot of very unhealthy relationships and tried my hardest to help them become more healthy. If you stick around to the end of the video, you will know exactly what factors I'm looking at in healthy relationships, and you will also know all 12 of the red flags that are warning signs to me of a toxic relationship. There's 4 categories we're going to dive into that reveal the health of a relationship, and I want you to let me know which of them you want me to go into more detail for in another video, so leave me a comment below. First one is about volatility and accountability. One of the ways I think about relationships and people in general is by considering that our minds are made up of our sense of self and the representation of other people and thoughts and feelings. In a perfect world, they are all nicely balanced. A healthy relationship has this perfect balance of thoughts, feelings, self, and other. It means you're going to be excited and giddy. Love is supposed to feel good. And hopefully you can balance that out with some thinking too. Thoughts like, slow down, we've only been on one date, let's stop planning the wedding. Thoughts can sometimes regulate our feelings that way. In a healthy relationship, there's also a nice balance of self and other, meaning that I can accept responsibility for my actions and mistakes. That means if I do something to upset you accidentally, you can tell me and I can apologize. Now let's compare that with unhealthy relationships. Relationships and individuals that are more volatile are being led by feelings. In relationships that lean towards more of the toxic side, one might observe partners with volatile tempers, violent or aggressive outbursts. But also it can be more manipulative. So I'm also thinking this includes threats to leave and dramatic gestures of packing bags. Both of these are kind of manipulating ways of communicating that are led by very intense emotions. Now, if you took the conflict style quiz on mypeoplepatterns.com, this sort of behavior is likely to come from the volcano or perhaps the fighter, both of which can have feisty tempers that can quickly escalate. These behaviors totally disregard the other person, and there's an imbalance between self and other. It's really hard to be in relationship with someone who has a sense of self that's completely out of proportion to other. This person is not likely to take responsibility for their actions. They're going to blame other people, other events and situations. The deflector might be a really good example of this. Number 2, distance and insecurity. It's very natural at the start of a relationship to want to spend all day, every moment with your partner. This is the exciting, giddy part of falling in love. It's the stage of the relationship in which we both want self and other to mush and overlap. This phase comes to an end eventually, and I would want both parties to separate out their self and other so they're nicely separate, same size, good distance between them. That means that they would spend more time being individuals. We're talking about maintaining independence and at the same time staying connected to pre-relationship friends and activities. You want to be an individual as well as in a relationship. And we can tolerate time away from our partner because we're separating out our thoughts and our feelings. And that means that we can communicate how we feel about each other. And when we can convey how we feel about the other person, they feel secure and loved and confident to spend time away from their partner. In unhealthy relationship dynamics, one or both individuals have a really hard time demushing their self and other. So one or both of the individual's well-being is thrown off when they can't be an individual in a relationship, especially when one person is insisting that the other cannot spend time with friends and family. This type of person cannot tolerate the idea of separating self from other, and they cling on to this distorted version of what love is. In relationships, there is a me, a you, and an us, and this person wants to be only us. Now, they also have difficulty in separating out their thoughts and their feelings. If two people in a relationship can't communicate their feelings clearly, both good and bad, we get emotional distance occurring. You don't know how I feel about you until I can tell you. Emotional distance can be used manipulatively too, which is definitely crossing into more toxic behaviors. The stonewaller, for example, is often deliberately withholding or giving the cold shoulder to their partner. And those are both prime examples of really toxic, unhealthy relationship behaviors. Pop quiz. How many of these red flags have you spotted so far? Don't forget to tell me in the comments which one of these topics you want more of a deep dive into, and I'll be happy to tell you more. Number 3 is all about power. Power dynamics can make or break a relationship. In a healthy bond, there's mutual respect and an even distribution of power. Now, ideally, a relationship consists of an equal balance of responsibilities between two people. That doesn't necessarily mean that we take turns every night cooking dinner, but it could mean that I tend to do more of the washing up and you tend to do more of the cooking. In healthy relationships, there's respect for the other person and they are treated as an equal to the self. That means there's an equal division of tasks and chores and relationship responsibilities, and they seem to get negotiated almost unconsciously. We sort of fall into these patterns. If this happens smoothly, we're probably in a healthy relationship because self and other are in balance. This couple can be open and honest with each other. There's no resentment building up. In unhealthy relationships, there is an imbalance of self and other. When individuals don't feel like they are 50%, there's inevitably going to be tension. In the best case scenario, a couple needs to have very serious conversations about things to figure out what part of their relationship needs to shift. Maybe I'm not helping out enough with cooking dinner. That would be an imbalance, and we need to have a discussion about how I can help. In the unhealthy zone of this scale, there is a struggle for power. It can become a game of one up, one down. Now that could be bickering over whose turn it is to take the trash out or whose turn it is to cook, or someone refusing to do something because I did it last time. When I work with this type of couple, it feels like they're keeping score on each other and they're tracking who is owed what and when and how. It's really unhealthy and it's a one up, one down relationship. The defender might be a prime example of scorekeeping. Instead of taking responsibility for their part, they will blame, counterattack, and over time, nothing really gets resolved. Lying in relationships indicates an imbalance of power too, especially in self and other. It could be that I don't respect you enough to tell you the truth, which is making other, you, smaller. Or it could be I'm afraid of you and I am too scared to tell you the truth, which makes other, you, bigger. Now, don't forget you can take the My People Patterns conflict style quiz. You can join our mailing list and you get a whole bunch more information over thoughts, feelings, self and other, as well as finding out if you're a defender or a fighter or a volcano. Conflict is totally natural and normal in a relationship, but how you handle it really matters. In healthy relationships, it leads to understanding. But in unhealthy relationships, there's avoidance or more personal attacks on each other. In a thriving, healthy relationship, conflict serves as a bridge to deeper understanding and intimacy. Both partners engage in constructive dialogue. They can talk about their thoughts, they can talk about their feelings, they can have feelings about their thoughts. It's lovely. They respect the boundaries between self and other. They don't attack the other person. They can make room for everybody to be heard. And we can handle complaints about each other well because we word them as feedback and explain our needs and want. When you use the salt, would you mind putting it back here and not where you put it? Because I have a really hard time reaching it whenever you leave it all the way up there. It's a complaint, but it's helpful. This is about mutual respect, and it fosters an environment where responsibility is shared and accountability is owned. Blame is nowhere in the picture. In healthy relationships, you can separate out thoughts, feelings, self, and other. And as a result, you're less reactive and can therefore choose how you respond to conflict. On the other end of the spectrum, we find relationships that have too much unhealthy conflict. And that is a disagreement that becomes personal. The criticizer, for example, will go there quite quickly, constantly finding faults in their partner that might have been expressed in an ideal world as healthy feedback. Why do you always put the salt back in the wrong place? You never put things back where you found them. Now, this can turn into contempt, a toxic form of disdain that goes beyond criticism or complaint about a behavior. It's this corrosive mix of sarcasm, mockery, and can include things like eye rolling and other forms of disrespect like that. What sort of barbarian leaves the salt there? Are you having a midlife crisis or something? What's wrong with you? Now, that behavior is not just hurtful, it's actually the number one predictor of divorces. All right, moment of truth. How many of those 12 red flags did you score? And which of these red flags surprised you the most? Let's have a conversation in the comments below. And of course, if you think I missed a trait, let me know. I would love to make another video for you on something that you'd find useful about relationship dynamics. If you found this interesting or helpful at all, please hit subscribe or like, share it with someone else who needs it.